a pastor at Westridge. So thanks for joining us today. It's great to see everybody. See? But it's great to be with you. We've been talking for the last couple of weeks about newness, how when we become one of God's children, He shares so much of Himself with us. He shares His time, He shares His character, He shares everything that He is, which is all goodness, His power. He partners with us in what we're capable of doing. So it makes life really full, really fulfilling. So we've been talking about that newness, and we've been using Colossians chapter 3. So let's look at the verse that's been sort of the anchor of this, which is Colossians 3:10, where it talks about putting on the new self. It says, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. Now we have a new self. So when we become one of God's children, He comes in, He breathes life, and on a continual basis, He's renewing us. So He brings newness, He brings His life, He brings His ability to love us and fulfill us. And it says, this new self is being renewed in knowledge. So we're constantly being renewed. This verse reminds me of Romans 12:2, which says that we can be transformed by the renewal of our mind. So we're being renewed in knowledge. Our mind is being renewed. And if you look at verse 11, which we haven't touched on yet, it gives us one of those foundational things we talked about last week. It says, here, in this kind of life, there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. This is God's family. This is how He sees His family. So let's pay attention to this. There's no Greek and Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian. It was kind of considered a savage race at that time. Slave, free. This covers everything: cultural differences, differences in nationality, in religion, in practices, in doctrine. This covers everything. There's none of that. It's just Christ in all. That's the foundation, and that's part of the newness that we receive and the thing that we're always being renewed in. And on that foundation, as all of us are His chosen ones, it says in verse 12, we are all holy and beloved as His children. This is how we treat each other, with compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, patience. This is what we talked about last week. So that is part of our foundation. And as our knowledge daily is being renewed, we become more and more united with His character, with His ability to just see every person as a fellow child of God, as a brother and a sister, as someone that we esteem, respect, put before us. All of these things. I also wanted to touch on 2 Peter 1:3, which I wrote in my journal, because again, this goes hand in hand with God's empowerment to do this in us. 2 Peter 1:3 says, His divine power has granted to us. So granted means it's given as a gift to us, all things that pertain to life and godliness. And if you keep reading that verse, it says that you and I have become, and that word for become means transform. We're changing from state to state. We're growing, we're moving, we're becoming partakers of the divine nature. So that is just such an amazing gift, that we can become partakers. This is a given as a gift, partakers in his divine nature. So let's really dig into that by just allowing his voice to really speak to us. And honestly, this has to happen in our home before it has any value outside of the home. This has to happen with those closest to us before it has any value outside. That's the truth. So let's take a look at what we're doing at home, when we're out, wherever God is sending us, wherever life sends us. He is there. He is granting you all things pertaining to life and godliness. So that fills me with great strength because it's his strength and not my own. I'm so glad it doesn't rely on me. So I hope this encourages you today. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow with Pastor Manny.